Hey guys, welcome back. I'm working on the rollback truck again. You saw in the intro, it's got a bit of a miss and a lot of smoke when the engine's cold and it's first started up. And I'm not worried about the smoke. It's a Cummins after all. But I am a little bit worried about the miss. So I'm going to run the overhead valve and injector adjustment on this engine and see if it snaps out of it. If it doesn't come out of it, we're probably going to need at least one injector or maybe a full set of injectors. So I'm going to run you through the overhead on this engine. First step, this is the accessory drive pulley, and it's marked in 3 places, A, B, and C. And there's a cover, mark on the timing cover here. So to start the procedure, I've lined up mark A with the timing cover mark, and this thing rotates clockwise as you're looking from the front of the engine. So it rotates the same direction as the engine. Takes an 1 5/16 socket, or 33 millimeters. Here's the cheat sheet that I'm going to use to set these injectors and valves. So this is an STC engine, meaning that it has step timing, and that's basically a timing advance system that uses basically a hydraulic lifter inside of the injector. And if you have an older engine that is not an STC, or you have a newer M11 that's like a Select that has an ECM, you cannot use this procedure. It's going to be a little bit different. But this should work for any L10 or M11 Cummins that has the STC valves. So you see, basically we have to rotate the accessory drive around 2 times, and then we'll set 1 injector and 1 valve at each time. With the STC engines, you don't set the injector and valve on the same mark. So you actually have to set 1 injector and a different set of valves. And we're going to hold the injector up. These are top stop injectors. We'll hold the injector up, and then we'll set the screw to 6 inch-pounds, and then exhaust and intake 27 and 14 thousandths. And it's the exhaust and intake part of it is the same. It's just the injector part that you have to be careful on these STC engines. And I guess the next logical question is, how do you know it's an STC engine? So if you have this fitting right here with this braided hose that comes out, that's part of your STC system. And it also feeds into this manifold back here, and that's where it sends the oil to the hydraulic lifter for the STC. So if you don't have this fitting right here, if you just have the fuel ports coming out of the side of the rocker cover, then you don't have an STC engine. The procedure tells us to start with injector number 3. That's this one here. I've got it actually, the rocker flipped back. But we have to check cylinder number 5 and make sure that these valves are closed. So just check the rockers and make sure they're loose, which they are. So that means that we're on the right, we're timed correctly. If the number 5 valves were open, then we need to rotate the accessory drive 1 full turn and go back to our A mark and start there. Or I guess we could start with 4 and 2 and just start the procedure in the middle. Either way. Now this is the actual injector right here, and this is the little linkage that the rocker arm pushes on in order to actuate the injector. So here's my rocker arm right here. Now in order to set these injectors, you need a special tool that holds the injector at its top position, and you can buy one from Cummins or whatever aftermarket company that you want to deal with. But I just made my own. So if your shop's anything like mine, you got a million old hex keys bouncing around. So I just took and ground the end down a little bit, and then there's actually a hole. There's actually 4 holes in the sides of this top cap on this injector, and you just put your tool in there and put a little thumb pressure on it, and that will hold the injector at the top while we set the rocker arm. I'm using a dial type inch-pound torque wrench. This is made by CDI, and 6 inch-pounds is way at the bottom of its scale, so it's probably not super accurate, but I think it'll be good enough for what we're doing here. And then I just have a screwdriver bit installed. So here we go. So we'll hold the injector at the top of its travel. And there's our 6 inch-pounds. It's not very much. Now we can just torque down the jam nut, and then that one is good to go. So setting the valves is pretty much the same as any other engine. Now this one does not have adjustable valve bridges, or they call them crossheads, I think. Sometimes they have, one side's adjustable. So if that's the case, you might want to double check that, but these are not adjustable. So and the long one is the exhaust, the short one is the intake. So 27 and 14 thousandths. Okay, I set all the other valves and injectors using the same procedure that I just showed you, and everything's back together now. One thing I like to do before I start the thing up is just go through and check all the jam nuts and make sure they're tight. I think I told the story before on the channel, but one of the dumbest engine catastrophes I ever saw resulted from running the overhead and not tightening the jam nuts on the rocker arms. So this is a pretty easy job on this L10. If you have a C brake or a Jake brake, that obviously makes things more complicated and a lot harder to get to, but this is just a bare engine, so it's pretty easy. I'll slap her back together and we'll see if it fixes anything. I kind of have my doubts. I didn't find anything that was really majorly out of adjustment, so either we got a problem with the STC system, which is pretty likely, or we've got a bad injector, or maybe we just need a whole set of injectors. Well, I guess we better wrap things up. It runs, and no big pieces came flying out, so I guess that's a good sign. Maybe we did our valve adjustment correctly. I'll have to look at the footage and see really if it's any better. I feel like it's a little bit less smoke and a little bit smoother running, but it definitely still doesn't seem right to me. So we'll run it for a while. I put a new fuel filter on it. We'll run a couple tanks of fuel through it and see if it clears up. and then if not, we'll probably be going after the injectors. I don't know how many miles are on this truck. The odometer doesn't work, but the previous owner suspected somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000. So if it's never had a set of injectors, it's definitely due for them. And, you know, just from age too. You know, it's however 25 years old, so wouldn't hurt to throw a set of injectors in it. And then it needs the rocker cover resealed. It leaks pretty bad over on the turbo side. So in order to do that, I think we got to pull all the rockers and everything off anyway. So be a good time to tackle that. So anyway, we won't drag this out too long. That's how you do the overhead on a L10 or a M11 that has the STC set up on the injectors. Again, if you have a Select or you have the old non-PT style injectors, do not use this method. But if you have the STC top stop injectors like I do, that's the way you do it.